live button. And I did. All right, we are live, part 2. Elisa, you would
Where
have
you're
never
not looking around the room wondering where I am.
you would have never guessed that I actually practiced and was prepared for today. But we'll pretend that I didn't and I'm totally winging it because that's exactly how it feels right now.
Yeah. This is usually what happens on the first run. And whatever. That's why we know good people, and I feel like both of our audiences are very forgiving and gracious. So
Yeah, and if they're not, I'll just delete their comments, right? I'm still trying
you
to
live in that day and age.
I'm still trying to delete that first video of me looking around for you. But anyways, we're here. My hope, I've never done really anything under 15 minutes. My hope is that I can be really impactful for the next 15 minutes with you.
Okay.
And I think it's really fair for everyone to know that I haven't sent you any questions. You have no idea what I'm going to ask. Nothing's been rehearsed, clearly, right?
Although that's the first thing we would say if it had been rehearsed. But I can validate that is in fact true.
That's
Other
true.
than all the other conversations that we've had. Just knowing each other, knowing how we feel about things. But yes, this is very, very off the cuff.
Yes, authentic. It's a thing. We actually embrace that around here. No, I was really trying to be thoughtful. And I would say, over knowing you for how long have I known you?
Gosh,
10?
2014. So almost 10 years. Next
Almost
year is
10
my
years.
10th anniversary, which I feel like should be silver. So
Oh, we'll do a gift exchange really soon on that. No, there's two main things that stand out that I want to talk openly about. Number one, me seeing your HR career go from being a recruiter to an HR leader magnet, making amazing things happen in the HR community. And I want to know what switch got, what happened, what switch got pulled, what lever, whatever the scenario is there that inspired, all right, I'm going to take the HR world by storm. What happened there?
Well, it's interesting. It's actually a little bit of the reverse. So I was an HR practitioner before becoming a recruiter for give or take, I don't know, 8 years or so. And was somebody that I don't like to say that I fell into HR. I feel like I was very methodically pulled into HR by a wonderful, wonderful mentor of mine. But that, even in the early stages, I was very grateful to have something where I had some sort of direction in my life. But it was still just sort of exchanging time for money. And I was just I don't know, I didn't want a career. I wanted to stay home and raise babies. Being a homemaker was all I wanted out of life. And then I did, in fact, have the ability to have children. So I had twin boys who were the result from some in vitro fertilization, that whole song and dance that goes with trying to start a family. And then one of our twins passed away at birth pretty unexpectedly. So there was this really interesting, I'd say about 4-week period where I went from kind of fudging the numbers with my previous employer. Yeah, I'm just going out on short-term disability while I have my babies, really not planning to come back, but wanting to maintain my benefits during that period. To then having children, dealing with being a first-time mom, grieving the loss of another child, all of this together. And within that 4-week time period, my boss at the time, the VP of HR, ended up getting let go along with our CEO. And now I was being asked by that company to essentially stay on and hey, can you keep the wheels on for us for a little while? We know you're dealing with a lot. But that was a great arrangement for me because I was still able to bring in some income with great flexibility from them. And within that 4-week dynamic of staying home with my son constantly and being living this life that I had thought that I wanted all along, I had to come to grips with the fact that I did not, in fact, want that. I have so much more empathy for parents that stay home, and whether they choose it or whether they have to or whatever their rationale, it is a full-time 24/7 job that just doesn't get the celebration and the recognition it deserves. So I decided, okay, well, if this isn't my path, if this is not where I'm going to contribute and, help support my family, then I'm going to pursue a career. And that is where Prince Perelson kind of enters the picture. The company that we worked out together, where I was like, I don't know how to sell. I've never done recruiting like this. I've done corporate recruiting. But the thing about that environment was, if you were good at it, you were good at it. And you could make an incredible living, just doing what you did.
And flexibility.
And the
there's
flexibility.
a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. And that's one of the great things I think about agency recruiting is you can work as hard as you want. You can work as little as you want. And the income kind of follows, right?
Yeah.
So I loved it. I mean, it was 3.5 years of so much growth, but this was where my transformation happened of going from needing a job to pay the bills to pursuing a career because I loved business. I loved what I was doing. I became so much more interested in how HR was able to impact our societies, our environments, our ecosystems, our businesses, our families and communities, all because of the way that we showed up with our policies and our benefit offerings and our flexibility. And so from there, I started getting more involved in different HR groups, SHRM and Disrupt HR, anything that had to do with HR in Utah. I wanted to be a part of it.
Oh, you were all in. It was
you
were all in.
Advocate.
And, yes, I guess that makes sense because you were an HR professional before you became a recruiter, and then you became a recruiter for HR professionals. And I think, and I could totally be wrong, but I think you kind of started the way everyone else started, which was just calling, meeting, asking when you could help them fill a position, right?
Getting hung up on, leaving voicemails that never got returned.
Oh yeah, we all start out like that. It's a very humbling start, right? But then you just decided you weren't going to do that anymore. You were going to put yourself out there. You were going to volunteer. You were going to be on boards. You were going to create boards. You were going to bring organizations to Utah that didn't exist, all knowing that you may not have gotten a financial return on it, because I think you were spending a lot of hours not getting paid for that in the beginning, but it built such a platform that your rise to becoming an incredible recruiter, I kind of saw it happen, not overnight, but it was just so being average to top of your game.
No. Well, I think that working, again, I hate to bring it back to this, but a lot of it was the environment we were in where we met. I feel like I worked with 30 incredible women and 4 very talented men in an environment that was extremely, extremely competitive, but through this lens of, together we all achieve more. And that sounds a little cheesy, but I really felt supported by my colleagues in a way that was they wanted me to win, but they also wanted to beat me. And I feel like I had never really had an environment like that where it wasn't, cut somebody off at the knee in order to get ahead. It was we're kind of 3-legged racing this together. And the faster you run, the faster I run to keep up. And it was just so incredible. And I remember even the first time I met you, I was so intimidated because you had this just incredible background behind you. You were introduced as somebody that was going to help bring us to the next level in the organization. And you even started a new division at the company with incredible clients like Netflix CS. And so all of that, again, it was very inspirational for someone like me that really didn't see how I fit into that story beforehand. But once I was a part of that environment and had the support and the belief of my colleagues and started having these little aha moments. I'll share this story and I'll try to be concise, but this was my aha moment where I went from I have no idea what I'm doing to holy shit, I know my stuff. Pardon me, LinkedIn community. Those of you that know me well know that I'm kind of.
Oh, don't worry, it'll get better.
So I had just met with this one particular client or prospect anyway, and we were negotiating contract details after spending about 45 minutes together going over the details, and I'm providing this consultation of what kind of HR they need, how much they should expect to pay. It's just sort of the consultant process of working with an agency recruiter. And at the end, we started talking pricing. And now the company we worked for was known as a boutique firm. We were highly specialized, and so we were not cheap. And I remember quoting a price that they were like, "Oof, we're nonprofit. Are you able to discount that at all?" And so I did agree to come down a couple of points on that. But ultimately, they said, "Look, we've talked to some other recruiters, and they're actually willing to do it for significantly less, almost half of what my fee was." And I had this moment where I was like, I know most of my competition does cost less. As a matter of fact, I will give you 2 referrals. I took sort of this Miracle on 34th Street approach of like, I'm going to send you to the competitors that I know are still going to do a good job, but like they'll do it for cheaper than I will. You're still not going to get the benefit of what I bring to the table, but if I'm too expensive, that's okay. We don't have to do this together.
Yeah.
So I left them with 2 recommendations, which they did. They reached out to, met with, and they hired both of them, and they kind of pitted them against each other and said, first, whoever can place it first will pay you. And I talked to both of these contacts of mine shortly after, and they were so frustrated. They were being run ragged. It's difficult when you're in an agency to know that you're
contingency search, right? Yeah. You're really,
But what ended up happening is I got so much confirmation because that client ended up calling me. They did find somebody. They placed them. They left after 6 weeks, and I got a call from this client and said, "Look, we messed up. We made a mistake. I mean, we understand we couldn't pay what you were asking, but we now see the value in what you cost because of just how much you knew the market, like all of the time that you spent. You really understood the motivations of our company and our goals." And anyway, it was the CFO calling to apologize to me. And I walked into our CEO's office after that call, and I was beaming. Like, I don't know about auras, but my skin was gold that day.
I was in that area when that happened. I remember some of that meeting. I was around that office, and I wasn't there for the whole thing, but I remember that conversation.
It was incredible. It was incredible. It was like probably one of the best days of my career. And that was where I turned from, sort of this meek, mild-mannered, quiet, shy, reserved salesperson that, felt so much imposter syndrome to, I don't want to say arrogance. I don't feel that it turned into arrogance, but it gave me an inner confidence that I had never had in my career prior. And maybe it did take that little extra push from some external validation from somebody to see that talent in me. But ever since then, man, it has been one of my life goals, my career goals, to help other women specifically, but other employees, especially in the world of HR, feel that same level of validity. It truly transforms your entire life. So anyway, yes.
Well, no, I'm glad I didn't know it was going there, but I'm really glad because I think knowing your competitors is really important in your profession. And I think, I have done secret shopping in the past, and it's still really hard for me this day I just don't feel great about it, but it gives me a lot of information, or I can just ask people that are in that world. And I understand the landscape and the position of what my competitors are doing and what they're pricing. And, you have to benchmark that so that you can go in with, hey, I may not be the recruiter for you, but I know other recruiters and I know what other services are doing. So let me point you in the right direction. Yeah. I have those conversations, and they are very helpful. I had one this morning. He was like, "I don't think you specialize in this. Do you know anyone?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm really good friends with the CEO of a company that does specialize in that. I'll happily introduce you." Mm-hmm. I think it's just owning your industry, right? Owning your industry, speaking about it confidently. And you have to have those conversations on pricing, and you have to know where you stand in it, because that's what you're paying for, is the value of where you stand, of how you identify yourself in that space.
Well, and I know that we're talking a lot about kind of the client and the sales and the recruiter side, but one of the other things I think that was unique and has been unique about models I've worked in is we did what we called full desk, which means we didn't just go out and do the sales. We also did fulfillment. We had to do our own interviews, find our own talent. And that I feel I'm taking the liberty of shifting our conversation a little bit. I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all.
This is something that I think is equally important on the candidate experience side. So another quick story about this, and then I'd love to ask you a question. So I'm on the phone the other day with the gas company because I just moved into this new condo and I'm trying to get all my utilities set up. And my landlady, English is a second language for her. And so she's kind of using me as a little bit of a translator to get all this taken care of. So we go through the whole conversation with this wonderful customer service agent who's helping us out. We get to the end of the call. And keep in mind, this is on my landlady's cell phone, right? She's got it on speakerphone. And this woman is like, hey, this is a really weird question, but did you used to work like as a recruiter in an office in Sugar House? And I was like, yeah. This is 10 years ago. And this woman is like, I met with you and I didn't end up getting the job that you sent me for, but it was so great working with you. You were one of the few people that followed up with me and communicated. And, you also gave me some good career advice. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you. The fact that she even remembered my name, let alone
10 years.
Yeah. Like, that meant the world to me because I don't always get it right, but in the circumstances where you can tell that you've had an impact on somebody in this way that is so magnanimous for many of us, right? Our career is tied to our livelihood, which, like that's our stability, that's our family dynamic. So when you have that touch point with somebody and just going the extra step of saying, hey, I see you, I'm sorry you didn't get the job, but keep at it, or here's some resources for you. That is dwindling, I think, in our profession. And it's sad to see, but I also understand why. Like, we just can't keep up, right?
Totally. No, I love that. I mean, memorable experiences. You mentioned Netflix, and I still am really good friends with a lot of the leadership that we placed there early on when they came into Utah. And that's how they hired, was based off of, even at the CSR level, the customer service level, what are agents that are going to give their clients a memorable experience? Mm-hmm. And I've very much so incorporated that into Hire Integrated. Like, I know when you're doing 5, 6, 7, 8 interviews a day, it's really, really hard to like bring your A+ game on every single conversation, but try to have some level of memorable experience so they remember you. And knowing that you can't place everyone that you speak with, can you at least give them a tip or an introduction or a resource to make their job search easier?
Yeah.
I don't expect for everyone to remember us, but at least we got to hold our heads high and try to remember that's an easy way to stand out in a crowded space.
I think it's kind of interesting. You have a great advantage, I think, also as an agency recruiting, because you're a little bit separated from, some of those like, oh, we got to be careful and protect ourselves parts of the corporate recruiting world. For example, I remember I loved our environment because you could try anything you wanted. Like, we didn't really, like, it was just a little bit of Wild West there. And I remember I created this PDF that I printed off for every candidate that came in and met with me. That had like tips and tricks of interviewing. And it also included like, business attire and some sample questions. And it was just a great leave behind of like, I at least want to thank you for coming in to interview with me today and spending a half an hour of your time or more, because they had to take the time to travel there. They had to come in and probably wait for me for a few minutes. So it really, and for most of them, it was a 45 to 60-minute commitment just to be there. And I wanted to make sure that I had something. Now, that probably would be a little different in a corporate recruiting environment to be able to do something like that. But this is such an opportunity where just a little bit of effort of like, take an hour to create something that you can give your candidates that helps them improve for their job search, or, a book that
Yeah.
you read that you really enjoyed. I think it's up to the other person to engage and, choose to
Yeah.
want that, but at least you made the effort to to prioritize that person's time.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I love
Hire
that.
Integrated, I think, does that really well.
Oh, I love it. I love that. I love that you said that. Um, we don't have time for it, but anyone that watches this that's made it to the 20-minute mark, first of all, it's Elisa, not Alyssa. It's Elisa. I have that as a voice memo on my phone and I listen to it occasionally because I'm the worst friend ever, but it's Elisa. And reach out to Elisa if you're looking for a job, or maybe you can share your post when you were looking for a job. It was before you accepted your offer for GBS. You actually did this reverse campaign of where you marketed yourself through LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
it was so well done. And I've seen very, very few people do it to the level that you have. And so if you have access to Elisa, or you feel comfortable reaching out to her and saying, share me that post that Emily spoke about, total Easter egg. You'll be so thankful that you did, because the way that she put herself out there in such a detailed, she articulated it in a beautiful way where there was no mystery about the value you would bring to an organization if they were to hire you. Like, I could do multiple hours on that and that alone. So we didn't have time for it, but I open it up to whoever makes it to the 20-minute mark so that they feel like their time was
Yeah.
very well worth it. You had a question for me, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, I wanted to, in the context of like what you do, what your company focus on, it really is difficult, I think, to stand out as an agency recruiter in today's market. It's very saturated, and you have like all agencies are not created equal. And so again, this is not a planted question, but I've had the benefit of working with agencies, corporate recruiters, and various recruiters all over the world, really. And I've also had the opportunity to work with Hire Integrated as a contract recruiter on occasion, which has been a great experience from the recruiter side of things. But I would be curious, when you are talking to candidates, maybe less so on the client side, but why would a candidate want to be represented by Hire Integrated instead of some of your competitors? Like, what is it about how you treat them or the access that you have to certain clientele? Like, what is your differentiator on the candidate side of things?
Yeah, I tell clients this, and I'll answer your question, but we don't have a secret pool of candidates, right? The candidates that we're representing are candidates that, for the most part, can readily be found and are available to any recruiter or agency out there. We don't get to keep them in lock and key and no one knows about them. Like, usually their profiles are public, and if they're willing to take our call and talk about an opportunity, they're probably willing to take another recruiter's call and talk about an opportunity. Foundational items, a lot of times there's a lot of theatrics when candidates are looking for a job. So we try to get rid of all of that, not just on how we interact with candidates, but how we encourage the hiring managers to act with the candidates. And I think if a candidate can go at any level, customer service or executive, if they can go into an interview where they're well informed, research, get rid of their nerves, they're calm, they're collected, they're going to put their best foot forward. They get one opportunity, right? And it shouldn't be about winning the person over in an interview. It should be about trying to create some type of authentic connection with that hiring manager. And the ace in the hole, if you're a job seeker and you can articulate to a hiring manager how you can help a company achieve their goals faster, better by hiring you, by you being a part of the equation, it's really, really hard not to get selected for that position. I just think I think candidates have a hard time articulating that.
Yeah.
But even a customer service person, right? If an executive, and they're so easy to find given the world of LinkedIn Lives and social medias and everything. You know where companies are and where they're headed and their vision. It's usually pretty clear and accessible. If a job seeker can research that, understand it, and articulate how they can be a part of that journey so that there's emotional connection formed in that interview, I'm putting my money on more times than not that they're going to get hired and they're going to get that job. So we try to help them connect those dots better.
I love that. And I think it's also helpful for you to, the hiring manager specifically, because sometimes it's even more drilled down than the company pain. And it's more that manager's pain of, you know, like if you can articulate how you're going to take something off of the manager's plate or solve a problem for them individually, man, that's even better.
Right? No, I completely agree. And so, yeah, one of my biggest compliments is when a hiring manager will accuse me of prepping a candidate too much for an interview. And I'm like, thank you. I know you meant that as an insult and you're pissed. But like this person gets 30 minutes with you at most. Like I want them to be ready for it. And I want them to know where your company's headed and how I think they're going to help you get there based off of what they shared me. And we're just going to make this really easy. So I love being accused of that. It's a big compliment. They don't ever mean it as a compliment, but they should if they know what I'm doing and they understand that that person wants to be there and they passionately believe that their skills can contribute to the bottom line, regardless of what position you hire them for. Okay, 25 minutes, 10 seconds, we'll wrap it up. Favorite drink, sweet tea with Emily. I'm not drinking sweet tea. I'm drinking V8 Energy. You know I have these all the time. Favorite drink. If we were on the front porch and I could offer you a beverage, what am I getting you today?
I also love the V8 Energies, although I don't like the red ones. I like the orange ones.
The orange ones are great
in the fridge. But I am very much on the heart attack just waiting for me Celsius kick right now.
Oh, totally.
Celsius 200 milligrams. Oh, blows my mind.
The Celsius pour-ins are awesome. Have you done the pour-ins when you don't have time? Yeah, if you want to just have like an 8-pack that you conveniently take with you and put in your water, I think they're a really good substitute if you can't have the real thing.
Noted. Okay.
Next time you come over, I'll have a cold Celsius ready for you. Until next week, Wednesday at noon, where my guest will actually be on the instant I start the video. And if you're interested in being a guest, just let me know. We're pretty casual. I'll make sure you get on the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I'm glad that I got to be your first. I hope I'm not your last.
Maybe. It could be like
no.
Ellen had Jennifer Aniston as her first and last guest. You might be my bookmark guest. Be careful.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.